All right, and it's showing we are live. You're on cue. Go ahead.
Good evening. It's March 9th, 7 o'clock, and the Chaska Park Board will come to order. First item on the agenda is the roll call. I guess I will do that since Mary is not able to join us.
Yeah, you
George,
can do it, all right. Yeah.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Marshall?
I was gonna say, otherwise I can do it too, either way.
Well, if you'd like to do it, be my guest.
All right. Chair David Downs,
Here?
Vice Chair Jason Branch,
Here.
Elizabeth Whiting,
Here.
Ernesto Ruiz Gutierrez, Georgianne Keyport,
Here.
Jalen Destin, and Zach Susserag.
Present, sir.
All right. Thank you.
With the roll call, we have a quorum. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is to adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion on changes to the agenda tonight? If not, I'll take a motion to adopt the agenda.
I move to adopt the agenda.
Second,
I'll second.
all those in favor say aye.
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 The agenda is adopted. Moving to the fourth item on our agenda is visitor presentation, and we've got the good fortune of having Tim Vossberg with us tonight. Tim, I'll turn it over to you.
Hello. So I'd just like to, first of all, thank everybody on the park board for allowing us to build our trail. And just thought I'd come on and give a little update. Marshall and I talked a little bit about it a few weeks ago. So this shouldn't take long, but so first of all, our nonprofit called Carver Trails, we're doing well. We have $875 in the bank, which doesn't sound like a lot of money, but we don't have many costs. By far our biggest cost is insurance. Last year we had to pay just shy of $1,200 annually for the insurance for the first year. So next little subject on the trail is just volunteer/maintenance. So it was a little difficult to get many volunteers to come out last summer after we opened the trail up. By far the majority of the maintenance that we have to do is cutting weeds on the sides of the trail. And we had to cut the weeds about 4 to 5 different times. We used a couple of Toro self-propelled lawnmowers and a lawn tractor and sometimes some hedge clippers to chop down some of the tall weeds alongside the trail. The hardest part is trying to keep the weeds down that are on the steep downhill sides of the trail. So realize that from July through October is our mountain biking league season. Okay, so a lot of the coaches and students are really busy, during the league, during those months. So this year I hope to try to attract more of these volunteers, early in the season, like May and June, so we can make sure we're not behind on the maintenance from that point then. As far as the wintertime goes, we had about 3 snowshoers out there to try to groom the trail for fat bike riding. And so we didn't try to groom all the trail, just the green trail. And it was a challenge sometimes with that few number. to keep it rideable for intermediate and expert riders. But we are still trying to work on getting a groomer that we can use in the wintertime. So obviously the winter season is now over, but next year maybe we can get a groomer. So next little subject is safety. I know that we had at least a couple little minor injuries that I'm aware of. One time, several of us were over at the trail doing some maintenance, and we heard that there was a rider who got injured and fell while we were there doing maintenance. And so the rider, I talked to him, he said he thought that he hit a bump on the trail, and I took some pictures. Didn't see any bumps, but we made sure that we smoothed out the trail just in case he had hit a bump someplace. Another thing that we did to try to minimize any accidents is right after the start of the trail now, there's a little shortcut that one can take so that one doesn't have to ride the kind of challenging corner that we have in the southwest corner of the trail, which is shortly after you start there. But other than a couple minor cases, I'm glad we have not seen more vandalism out there. I was a little worried about that, but nothing significant, which is fantastic then. So in terms of usage, I believe that because of COVID, the trail has seen a lot of heavy usage from the general public. In the warm months, at times I would see an average of a dozen riders out there on the afternoons and the evenings. Also, there were many families with young children out there, which is fantastic. So in addition to the Chaska Chan EP mountain bike team using the trail during those 4 months of July through October, it was also used by the Shakopee, Minnetonka, and Edina teams as well. And I know some of the league personnel have been out there riding the trail as well. So just big picture, realize that that on the league has a website where teams can sign up to practice at different trails. So that worked real well for us to try to spread out the usage of the trail there, make sure especially there weren't a lot of teams at one time practicing on the trail. So another thing I like to talk about is mountain biking classes. So I volunteer with the league and I assist on putting on summer dirt schools for the league. And we hope to have some dirt school sessions, possibly in conjunction with the Chaska and Shakopee people at Hawks Ridge this summer yet. So we'll have to see where we're at right now. COVID still has some restrictions that are a little concerning. So hopefully those get changed when we get closer to the summertime. So also I've talked to the community ed folks about possibly having some adult mountain biking classes and potentially also, for instance, a women's only class if people are interested in that. So other things, improvements that we've done on the trail. So realize that last October, we had a Boy Scout do an Eagle project. And so we had 3 benches installed out on the trail, one at the trailhead, one on top of what I call Peak 1, and then one on top of what we call Peak 2, which is farther east there, if you will. So also in October, we planted 10 trees out there. 6 of them we planted in the trailhead area and 4 of them up on top of Peak 2. Those were donated by a local landscape outfit. So that was very nice. We've got those strategically placed in conjunction with the benches. And also we did some trimming of some mature trees that are out there up on the ridge as well. So in terms of the future, we possibly want to cut a walking path along the top of the ridge so that people can be out hiking and walking the trail without having to worry about bicycles. That trail would be just for walkers. So, and then also that trail potentially can lead to the east down to what we call the bike park area. So also a couple more picnic tables might be nice in the future if we have any other Boy Scouts asked to do Eagle projects. And then also here this coming spring, we plan to build some wooden obstacles and a bump and a small berm trail over in, pardon me, what we call the bike park area, which is kind of on top of the hill, kind of about roughly in the middle of the park. And it slopes gently towards the ponds that are over in the eastern end there. So, so us mountain bikers really appreciate partnering with the city of Chaska and Marshall and the park board and being able to provide this great asset to the community and for the safety of our student riders on our team. So one other thing I could add is we've had some warm temperatures, but the trail probably still will not open for several weeks. A lot of the snow is melted over on the south side, but not on the north side. So with that, any questions anybody might have?
Tim, I have a question. Is it possible, and maybe I haven't studied the sign enough at Hawks Ridge to see if you have your website posted. Otherwise, I'm wondering if we could have like a QVC code where people could somehow like donate when they're there riding the trail to, you know, if at their wish to donate to the Hawks Ridge Trail, or maybe possibly sign up there with a QVC code to help with the maintenance. If there was like a schedule where people could sign up to alleviate some of those pain points for you guys.
Right, okay, well, thanks for the two suggestions. I think they're, first of all, you know, yeah, we've talked, our nonprofit has talked a little bit about how we can try to incent people or make it easier for people to donate. So the QR code is a great suggestion. We didn't think of that. So, you know, that's a great suggestion there. So I will look into that for sure. And then also realize on the maintenance, and we thought about doing something, so realize like last summer we had maintenance on, you know, I had to try to have it consistently on 6 p.m. on Wednesday nights. But that isn't posted, you know, there on the sign, which we could do, you know, which would probably be a good thing. You know, I wasn't sure exactly what time would work best and all that, but that time works good, especially once our league season starts, because our kids and coaches are busy Monday, Tuesday, Thursday nights, and Saturdays. So that's kind of why we picked Wednesday. So thanks for those two suggestions. And another thing realize too is that, you know, we have well, most people are used to, and Marshall suggested that we use Facebook to do a lot of communication. So we do have a site on Facebook where people can go there and for instance, you know, we'll post, you know, when we're going to have maintenance days. And also we post like that's where our website is listed if people want to go and donate potentially. But I really like those two suggestions there in terms of the donations and the maintenance times and days. Thank you.
You're welcome. I wrote on the path for the first time in the fall, and I have ridden a mountain biking trail once in my life. And I thought from standing back, I was like, well, this is going to be a piece of cake. And you just kind of follow it around, and kind of intimidating. So I'm very excited for the woman's only mountain biking class. If you get that up and so that, it'll be like, they'll be embarrassed, but maybe slightly less if no gentlemen are watching
All right.
take on the hill.
Okay.
Yeah, the classes would be very exciting. What age do you think you'll start your dirt school at? Like how young?
Okay, so that's a good question. So realize the dirt school is in conjunction with the league. Okay, so with that, the youngest you can be is, I believe, is going into 6th grade.
Okay.
Okay, all right, now realize that we have what we call a development team where we partner with the community ed folks, so people can join our development league, or I'm sorry, our development team that practices in the months of July and August only. That is for anybody from 3rd or 4th grade on up. So we have a kind of a gap, if you will, and I, potentially maybe, probably not this coming year, but maybe the year after, maybe we could offer, a program for the 3rd, through 5th graders, and have a program like Dirt School for that age group also.
Well, it's all just really cool. And I thank you so much for all your efforts. It's really something neat. I live close by and always see lots of traffic there and people walking, running, biking. It's just really neat. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I've only heard great things about it. So thanks for all your hard work on that. And thanks for coming to the park board meeting tonight. We really
Okay.
appreciate having you.
You're welcome. Thank you, folks.
Tim,
Mark,
and I'll just,
Thanks a lot, Tim.
yeah, and I'll just finish too, Tim, by saying a big hats off to and a big thank you to you and the rest of the Hawk Ridge board, and to the volunteers that did choose to come out. I know a lot of work went into that. It was a 2-year project with a lot of obstacles along the way. And, it's always rewarding to see that pay off. And, I think you guys did a tremendous job. And like everybody said, there's a lot of activity out there. And you really activated a piece of land that, would just sit there normally. And so I think it was a very creative use as well. And just keep us in tune how we can help, promote activities out there, the classes, again, if we can help generate some volunteers. Those are all things that the city can assist with going forward as well. So.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marshall.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, board. I'll exit. Good evening.
You don't want to stay on for the rest of the meeting?
No, I've got to go play some hockey tonight yet, actually.
All right. Have a good night.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, that's, I think, completes our visitors presentation. Is there anybody else out there, Mike, as a visitor that would like to present anything?
Nope, not that I can see anyone, no.
Okay, so item agenda 4 is closed. That takes us to item 5, approval of the previous minutes. Are there any corrections or additions or subtractions from the minutes from the last park board meeting that any of you would suggest? Hearing none, is there a motion to accept the park board meeting minutes from February 9th?
I motion to accept the meetings.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
The meeting minutes are accepted. Takes us to item number 6. The council meeting minutes of January 25th and February 1st. Are there any comments to those minutes? We don't need to have a motion to accept. But if there's none, we will just move on to the next. No comments, we'll just move on to the next item. Hearing none, we'll move on to the next agenda item. Recommended consulting firm for the development of pedestrian and bicycle master plan. Marshall?
All right, thank you. Yeah, a couple action items for us tonight. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. Can everybody see that? Okay. All right, so the first item we have, action item for tonight, is making a recommendation for which consultant to utilize to help develop our pedestrian and bicycle master plan here for the city of Chaska. So really excited about this project. As you know, this project is really capable due to the partnership with Carver County and having some grant funding through the statewide health improvement partnership program to be able to fund this plan. And so I really thank Pat Stieg over at Carver County Health for his partnership on this. That grant agreement got approved by City Council a couple of months ago. Shortly thereafter, we sent out a request for quotes. We sent that out to 4 different consulting groups, and happy to share with you that we got 2 really quality proposals back. And so those proposals I did email out to the park board. I think it was the middle of last week. They were pretty lengthy, I think about 40 pages each. So wanted to make sure everybody had time to read through those. And then they were also included in the park board packet as well for the public to see. And so I really want to first off thank both Hoysinton Kegler Group and Jody Radar, who would be the project manager for that group, who put their proposal together. And then also thank Antonio Rosell, who would be the project manager for the community design group that's partnered with WSB for submitting their proposal. And so what I thought I would do is just share with you my feedback and what my recommendation is, and go through some of those points. And then from there, I'll turn it over to the park board to see what other questions you may have. But then also ultimately be looking to make a motion for a recommendation to City Council. So it's always difficult selecting who to work with when you got very qualified consulting groups to work with, and I think we really can't go wrong with either of the groups, but in the end we do have to pick one. And as I read through it, these are kind of some of the things that are leading me to think that working with the community design group with WSB is ultimately my recommendation. So first off, I think just looking at their experience, the community design group along with the WSB, if you saw, really has a vast amount of experience putting together these master plans. And you can see the list of the variety of cities throughout Minnesota that they've developed these for. So I think that's one thing. I'm also, I think it was very advantageous for them to also bring on WSB to work with them. WSB really provides more of that engineering background. It can provide some more of the construction feasibility into the plan, and then really hone in on the implementation capabilities, you know, that go with the recommendations that are going to come out of this plan. So I like that engineering component. WSB also actively is working with Carver County on developing their master plans for their regional trails throughout Carver County. So they do have good background on the trails in Chaska. And, you know, I think working in coordination with them on how our trails can link to the regional trails will be important. As you recall, a little over a year ago, we partnered with Carver County and did an initial pilot project for some trail wayfinding signage. That's when we developed that orange loop and the green line. And it was WSB that we worked with on that pilot study. So they've got some experience there as well. I really like the fact that they're using the 6E approach. So, you know, engineering, evaluation, education, encouragement, enforcement, and equity. And those 6 E's align with the approach that the League of American Bicyclists uses when they look at the applications to become a designated bicycle-friendly community. So, you know, in the big picture, that's ultimately the direction we're going. You know, this master plan fits within that application. And so I think by utilizing the 6E approach, it's going to align nicely with what the League of American Bicyclists is evaluating as well. And then lastly, just comparing the fee proposals. Community Design Group came in lower than Hoisington Kegler. Hoisington Kegler Group came in at $52,800, and then they had an additional kind of optional contingencies for another $7,900, which is a total of $62,000. Whereas the Community Design Group with WSB came in with a proposal of $49,975. One question I anticipate you may have was that the grant amount that we received was for $40,000. So from the time we received these proposals up until today, I had reached back out to both HKGI and Community Design Group, and I asked them each to essentially resubmit fee proposals with 2 other scenarios, one at $40,000 and then another one at $45,000. And I wanted to generally understand what was it that they were gonna sort of cut out of their original proposal to meet those 2 different benchmarks. Because ultimately we don't want to compromise. We don't want to compromise the outcome of this master plan, but we also need to be mindful of the budget we have. But in evaluating that, you know, and just with Hoisington Kegler coming in a little higher to begin with, it was apparent that they were needing to cut more things out to get down to those dollar marks. So, like I said, very excited to embark on this project. You can see by the variety of cities that these consultants are working with that many cities have already developed these pedestrian and bicycle plans, and so I'm excited for the opportunity to be able to implement this here in Chaska. I really think that, you know, walkability and bikeability can provide a vibrance to a community, and we already have a great network of trails. We got a good start, and so I'm really looking forward to developing this plan and just kind of enhancing what we already have and looking at things into the future. But also, more importantly too, is really engaging the community and getting feedback into this process to help develop this plan. So those were my thoughts as to why I think we should be working with the community design group with this plan. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and then open it back up to whatever question, comments any of you may have.
So Marshall, you had mentioned there's the grant is what limits this project is 40K. Is there any opportunity for the grant to be extended or additional grants, or some grants are set up for the next one? Is this something is there an opportunity for that sort of thing?
Good question. I did reach out to Pat Stieg initially based on the fee proposals that we received to see if there was additional grants in that SHIP fund to be applied towards this. And essentially he was saying, you know, if we're looking at, you know, $10,000 on up, they wouldn't have that available. You know, I think they generally would like to see it at the 40,000, but you know, I intend to go back and see if, hey, if we feel like between what they're proposing for 45,000 versus 40, could there be some additional funds to get us to that $45,000 mark? The other option too is for me to, you know, essentially work with our city administrator to see if there's available funds at the city to be able to contribute that additional $5,000 if we felt that that was the direction we wanted to go.
Okay.
Yeah, I think your approach is absolutely spot on, Marshall, that, you know, their fees were also on a not to exceed basis, so they probably have some flexibility in not only the scope, but in the fees to be able to complete what they had as their scope. And I'm with you that we certainly don't want to jeopardize any of the quality of the plan on the thing. And I would think that the city might be persuaded into helping us out there if it really meant something that we would be proud of versus something that wouldn't be quite done right.
Mm-hmm.
And there also may be some things in there that, you know, maybe some of the staff could do in lieu of the contractor doing too, that, you know, they may be able to give some ideas on that too. So
yeah, that's a good observation, Dave, because I did have per request a conversation with Antonio from the community design group, and he kind of walked me through kind of the differences between the proposed fee, $45,000, and then what would be a $40,000. And he felt like it was pretty easy to get down to the 45,000 just by utilizing some staff, especially for some of the community engagement type things. He did have built in there some engineering staff from WSB to be a part of those community engagements. He said, you know, there's some benefit to that, but it's not critical. But if some of that can be accomplished with staff, you know, and a couple other minor things, that alone gets us down to that 45,000. Whereas getting down to the 40,000, he felt that, you know, he had to cut some more things out. I mean, that's just the nature of it. But he was pretty strategic in where he could do that. He felt like, you know, even at 40,000, we'll come out with a really good quality plan. There might just be some little situations where we might lose some of that specificity to Chaska. You know, they've done enough of these plans where, you know, there are some things that are pretty relevant city to city to city. So some of those recommendations, you know, I think are pretty consistent. So that's kind of that little bit of difference, but in general, I think I'll be advocating for that $45,000 proposal. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Marshall. I was reading over both documents, and yeah, my thoughts fell straight in line with yours. Hoisington, I know we've worked in the city. I mean, they have a lot of experience in the city.
Yeah,
they've helped us out with a lot of things, but I think in this scenario and just the experience that they have in the metro area and being, you know, already in with Carver County, I just believe it's a no-brainer. You know, I don't know the next time that we're going to have to conduct something like this, but you know, I understand $10,000 is a lot of money, but if this is something that we're not going to do for another 30 years, I mean, at that point, I just, you know, obviously I'm probably preaching to the choir on this one. You want as much as we can too, and you understand that, but it'd just be really nice because this seems very in depth, and to not get it, like you said, done right would be a shame.
Marshall, I noticed with the existed, like where they want to scope out what's existing conditions and review and analysis, that seems like something that I feel like our city staff has already done extensive work on and had kind of a website and stuff online and had like a full interactive map. Maybe that's an area that they could utilize our city staff members also, along with the public engagement, to kind of bring down those fees too, possibly.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, and I think as we get into it more and he understands, you know, what information is available already, you know, there could be some shifting around of how they're allocating some of the hours that the staff are working on things.
Yeah,
kind of like all budgets, they're kind of a plan, but they can be modified over time. Yep.
You know, when you look at their breakdown of the tasks and stuff, the number of hours in any one category is really pretty small. You know, you don't see anything of any of these things that's more than like 28 hours, I think is the biggest one. And from there, it drops precipitously to, I think, 12 hours for any one type thing. You know, it's any item that you take out is not going to have a significant effect on the thing. And I agree with you that the $45,000, if they can get down to that fairly easily, that would be a good number for us to go to, and not nitpick them to death for $5,000. You know, whether it's the county that can come up with it or whether it's the city that needs to come up with it. It's probably a good plan to focus in on that rather than trying to really skinny it up.
Mhm.
It seems like at the end of the day, if our goal is to become a bicycle friendly city, like this is the funds and the ideas that are going to get us there. So whether we spend it here with this group developing the plan, we'll spend it later trying to meet the criteria to be the bicycle friendly, which you only have one shot every 6 months or 3 months to apply. I feel like this would get us a long way to meeting those bicycle friendly criteria, considering the 6 E's align with, the bicycle friendlies. I think it's like 7 E's or whatever criteria. So I think I like that aspect. And it seems like they have a lot of time and efforts designated to the public engagement, which this is for the public. So I really like that they kind of focused on that so that the public can have as much input as they can possibly, give to this project, because it's going to be for everyone to use. So I really like that focus with this group as well.
Really good job outlining how they would engage the public too. So that was important. And then there's going to be, recommendations, obviously, that are going to have, need to be investments into the future. And so I think really, the key in developing this plan is also making sure that it is implementable. And I think that's what I picked up on with the community design group in WSB is really honing in on the engineering and the costs, to create a real picture on what it's going to look like to implement various things, and then how we're going to prioritize them over the years. And there could be some things going into the future too that we might be able to utilize additional SHIP grant dollars for example, even things like bike racks could be some infrastructure that we could get some grant funds towards. And then it's my understanding too that, this plan will ultimately have some funding strategies that will come out of it too, for us to consider as we need to implement projects.
Okay, is there any other comments on the proposal? I think we're in a position then to make a motion. I'd suggest we make it as easy as possible and as straightforward as possible. That something like Park Board recommends City Council approval of the pedestrian bicycle proposal by Community Design Group and WSB, and leave it at that. Is there any additions or anything else you think we should include? I was thinking about possibly including something about the cost on this thing, but I'd rather not do that. And if the City Council wants to discuss it, that would be the place for it. It's too complicated, I think, at this point to try to include that as part of the recommendation to the council.
I think how you said it works perfect, Dave.
Are we ready for a vote on the motion then?
Mhm.
I think we need to make a roll call vote on this for the minutes, Marshall.
Yep. You want to go ahead and do that, Dave, or would you like me to?
Yeah, I can. So the motion is Park Board recommends that the City Council approve the pedestrian and bicycle proposal submitted by Community Design Group with WSB. Jason,
Aye.
Oh,
Georgianne,
sorry, Dave. So, sorry, we got to back up. You actually got to get a motion and a second.
oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Is there a motion on the proposal?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second,
Okay, now we'll take the vote.
There you go.
Okay, Jason?
Aye.
Georgianne?
aye.
Zach?
Aye.
Elizabeth?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well, so it's unanimous to go ahead, Marshall, with the presentation to the
Woohoo.
council.
Great. So what I'll do is work to get that on their agenda for next week. And then, you know, should they approve that, we'll reach out with the community design group to enter into an agreement. And then, you know, I think more than likely our meeting next month will be a work session where I'll intend to invite the community design group along with the bicycle friendly community committee. And that way we can all have a discussion, including the park board, and just kind of kick off the project and sort of understand what things are going to look like, allow for some, you know, whatever questions there may be. But I think more importantly, just, you know, getting to know Antonio and some of the other consultants that'll be working on this project.
Sounds like a great idea. That closes out, I believe, item 7A. Item 7B is to appoint a park board member to serve on the Bicycle Friendly Community Committee. Is there a volunteer to be able to take that mantle and help develop the plan and follow it through to success? I don't hear anybody chomping at the bit here. If there's someone that would like to do this, if they're not able to attend any of the meetings and that, I would certainly be backup. And so you don't absolutely have to attend any meeting, but I would like to have somebody that is interested in this project be able to step forward.
I would be willing to volunteer. I am not so much of a road or a mountain biker yet, but if Tim gets that women's league going, and I do road bike quite a bit, so I am used to the trails in Chaska and grew up riding my bike to get from place to place in Chaska. So I would be happy to volunteer for the board.
I was hoping you'd volunteer for that, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I'd enjoy it.
Yeah, and just so you know, Elizabeth, I anticipated being probably a monthly meeting, you know, where you would be, you know, essentially joining in with the existing committee members. As you recall, former park board chair Dave Rohn filled this role, but now that he is off of the park board, he's continuing to serve, but he'll be kind of a resident representative at this point. So it's more than likely a monthly meeting, and then, you know, I think there's going to be some opportunity to, you know, get involved in some of the community engagement as well, which would be helpful. But then what I'll do is, you know, rely on you to help provide an update back to the park board as we navigate the project.
Okay.
Sound good?
Do we need to have an emotion? We don't need a motion or anything to be able to have Elizabeth as our representative, do we?
I don't think so.
Okay, Congratulations, Elizabeth. I'm sure you'll do a bang up job for us.
Thank you. I'm
Thank
excited.
you, Elizabeth.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, item number 8A, Community Center update.
All right. So I got a few updates regarding the community center. One new update that wasn't listed on the agenda, I think that we should talk about is, you know, you all probably heard the recommendation that came out through the Minnesota Department of Health around this new COVID variant that presented itself here in Carver County. So we got word of this Friday evening at, you know, probably around 7 o'clock that this occurred. And so as you can imagine, it created quite a bit of discussion throughout the entire weekend. I was literally on the phone Sunday night at 9:30 talking to people about this. And then most of my day yesterday and even this morning. And so we're just really trying to figure out what this all means. We did have a meeting this morning. I was able to join in with our city administrator, Matt Podorowski, along with the county's superintendents throughout the schools, along with Carver County Public Health. We met with the Minnesota Department of Health, and we're able to get a little more insight as to you know, where these outbreaks are occurring, and you know, to what degree we need to manage this. And you know, I guess probably the bigger things that I'd like to share, you know, and my understanding is, you know, throughout the state, this variant thus far has, you know, as of Friday night, there were 6 outbreaks, and 5 of those outbreaks have occurred in Carver County. Of those outbreaks, 4 of those 5 have occurred at, you know, gyms and or fitness centers, including the community center. It's really tied to the younger population. And that's why they put forth a recommendation of pausing youth sports. I think it's affected a variety of sports, but from what I could tell, it definitely was a little bit more predominant in both hockey and wrestling. You know, and it has also, you know, as it relates to the community center, it has involved, you know, Breakaway Academy students, along with CCHA participants at the community center. And so from what I heard too, this variant of it's the B117. It's the one that was found over in Europe. As you know, over in Europe, they've basically went back on a whole nother lockdown and closed schools and whatnot. I guess it's 40 to 50% more contagious, and it is more virulent. So it is more severe if you do get it. And so I think this is just their initial recommendation, knowing that these outbreaks are kind of isolated here in Carver County thus far. More than likely, as we talk, it's probably already spread to other communities. As you probably know, a lot of the data we get, it's typically representing activity from 2 to 3 weeks prior. And so just based on how contagious this is, and the fact that a lot of our youth sports are, you know, playing other communities and traveling to other communities, you know, my assumption is that we're going to see it in some other communities here in the near future. But we as a city and as an emergency operations center have followed the Minnesota Department of Health and Carver County's guidelines and recommendations throughout this entire pandemic. And so once we received that recommendation, we took immediate action. And we basically put a pause on all of our kind of components of the community center, you know, that provide access to youth sports. So primarily our ice arena, but also we implemented like some of our activity, like open gym, open skate currently is still available, but it's only for 18 years of age or older at this point. We've asked Breakaway Academy to put a pause on their physical education activities for the moment until we can have further discussion. We've had to notify, you know, renters such as the Dance Academy, who rents space at the community center and offers, you know, youth dance lessons there as well. And this also applies over at the curling center too. And so we've notified the Sub-Zero Curling Club, the Junior Club, you know, and participants under the age of 18 that for the time being, we're putting a pause on their activity at the facility. We're going to continue to have some more discussion with Carver County Public Health, you know, in helping us determine what, you know, what our course of action is going to be. The recommendation said it would be for 2 weeks. So I anticipate, you know, more is going to be coming out middle of next week in terms of, you know, are we able to resume, or is this getting extended, or, you know, what is going to be the next steps here? It's quite frankly, you know, a bummer. I think we all have COVID fatigue. We were at a point where we're feeling very, very excited about seeing our facility getting some more use. Things were generally looking, you know, positive, and, you know, at the same time, we see that, you know, the vaccination is, you know, is definitely rolling out, and so there's light at the end of the tunnel, but there's kind of like two trains. It's the vaccination train, and I think this COVID variant train, and somehow we gotta put a stop to that variant and buy some time, a little bit more time until we can all get vaccinated, you know, and try to just minimize what this variant can do. You know, and so we're doing our part, and, you know, it's not easy. We get put in a very difficult position as the facility operators and having to make decisions on these things, you know, and really it kind of comes down to two options is how I've come to understand this. The first option is to do what we did and put a pause on things, and, you know, and quite frankly, upset a lot of user groups. They're not happy. Another option is we could have not put a pause on any of our facilities and put the onus on the user groups to take the recommendation for what it's worth from their perspective, and hope that they pause their activities. However, it's really not happening. And we were already told that some of these youth groups are just going to go to other facilities. And so I feel like if we just stay open there's even a higher likelihood for this variant to spread even further, you know, and create more outbreaks, which is just not a healthy way to go. And in the end, we're going to get pointed at for that as well. You know, why did we stay open when we knew that was the recommendation? And so we're put in a tough spot, but there again, I feel like it's important that we be consistent with what we've been doing all along, and important that we're aligning with the Minnesota Department of Health, Carver County Public Health, and the school district. Because we all got to be partners in how we're going about this. It's not perfect, but we're doing the best we can. Anybody have any
It's the right
questions
thing
on
to
that?
do. It's just the right thing to do.
Mhm.
I don't think anybody is going to question your motive or anybody else's motive to keep people safe.
Yeah, you guys have been doing a great job, Marshall.
Yeah, it's just tough because in the end, you know, and again, you know, we've already taken a huge financial hit throughout this pandemic. You know, we lost, you know, at the community center alone, $1.5 million. You know, and so when this comes into play and then we're putting pauses on things, you know, we're losing more revenue. You know, and we sort of take the hit on the judgment a little bit in the perception. But it is sort of, I guess, a little difficult in that, and this is something that we expressed to the Minnesota Department of Health is, you know, if this is that serious, you know, it really ought to be a mandate, you know, because when things get positioned as a recommendation, people have a hard time with that because it doesn't feel like it needs to be done. A recommendation is kind of left up to how you want to interpret it, so to speak. And, you know, by us pausing and then, for example, you know, CCHA is going to then go to other ice arenas across the metro. In the end, that doesn't help because that's just creating more spread over into those other communities. And so that's kind of the difficult piece is, you know, it's not even about the money. It's the way we're going about this isn't really getting at what we're trying to do from a community health perspective, unless everybody kind of plays their part. And that's difficult to do when it's only coming across as a recommendation. So we'll see. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of weeks, and whether or not this variant continues to spread.
Marshall, what has been the feedback that people have been receiving at the community center when you guys make decisions about stuff like this? Like, is it 50-50 support versus critiques, or?
Good question. I would say that most of the social media comments we've gotten as it relates to community center members, they're very supportive of our decision, and they appreciate us taking it seriously and following the recommendations. You know, I think the hockey groups were disappointed that they don't have access into the ice arena, you know, which is why they're choosing to go elsewhere. Breakaway hockey is another user group, you know, a lease tenant in our building, you know, that I think isn't happy with you know, with how we're positioning this recommendation. by not allowing them to offer Phi-Ed within the ice arena and the gyms, it creates some challenges for them on how they're gonna conduct that, and there again, that's actually another, I guess, challenging thing for us to define, because physical education is different than a sport. Although it's very similar, the activity is similar. And part of the recommendation, is getting that information from MDH and Carver County Public Health on how to position that. And so we're actually going to be having some more discussion with Breakaway Academy on Thursday morning to discuss that a little bit further.
Well, I'm curious, in terms of the recommendation from the health department, how do you come to the end of that? I mean, is it testing to these, for instance, Breakaway Academy, if they had routine testing or taking temperature to demonstrate that they are all healthy? Does that then bring this hopefully temporary ban to an end? How does it come to an end?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know that they've set up a testing site over in Chanhassen, and I think they are recommending that sports teams get tested, I think on a weekly basis going forward. But I'm not exactly sure what that, I guess, trigger point is for them to say we can stop the pause. Hopefully soon, but also I want to make sure that we're healthy to do so. I guess sort of going back to your question, Zach, on the feedback, one effect it has had, even though members are supportive of it, we've already seen cancellations.
Mhm.
I think we had 10 cancellations Friday night, and now we've got members asking us, well, are we getting a refund since we're not able to use certain components of the facility? So now it's like, here we are again. Do we need to look at refunding an entire month for a family membership because, family open swim and skate and gym, aren't available? We haven't quite determined that yet. We want to figure out how long this pause is actually going to be, but something we're going to have to figure out.
Is an option with that, Marshall, is it rather than refund money, is to extend membership?
Yep. Yeah, and that's actually how we've generally gone about it. So we're not actually having to process refunds.
Okay.
So like monthly memberships, we can essentially, change the transaction amount the following month, or waive it. And then on the annual memberships, we can extend the expiration date on their pass.
Just
All
a
right.
quick question, Marshall. Is this like no one will have access to the community center, or is there like any particular group at the community center that's still allowed to use the facility?
Yeah, so adults are still able to use the facility.
Okay.
Yep. So really it's pretty much a pause on 18 and younger.
For any activity.
Other than they could go use like the cardio and weight area, just not some of our like community, like our open skate, open swim, or open gym.
Okay.
Just because in those types of environments, there's, you know, a little less ability for proper social distancing. Whereas in our cardio and weight area, people generally are in one spot, you know, and we have the equipment spread out. So that's still all available. The recommendation did tell us to put a pause on our in-person group fitness classes. We were just starting to kind of implement those. We didn't have a lot on the schedule to begin with, so not a huge impact there, because we're still offering a lot of virtual classes. So there is still the ability for adults to do lap swim. So that's available. So a good amount of the stuff is still available. It's more particular to the youth sports within the building. But Breakaway Academy is still conducting in-person learning. Alphabet Junction is still in there doing their preschool treks and trails. Our preschool program is still operating. The Arts Consortium is still operating. Yeah. Any other questions on that?
Nope.
Okay. So next up, some good news. Share some happy news about the community center. Back on February 19th, if you recall, was the 30-year anniversary. The date in which, there you go, Zach. That was the exact date the facility was dedicated to the city of Chaska, the community back in 1991. So we held a 30% off sale to honor that on our annual memberships. That was on a Friday. And happy to share with you, we sold 236 memberships on that Friday. So just a phenomenal turnout. A little bit of a breakdown here. Of those, 100 memberships were new. 97 of them were people who already had an annual membership but purchased another one, you know, and extended another year. And then we had 39 members who were on a month-to-month membership that converted over to an annual membership. And then out of the 236, 146 of them were family memberships. So that was encouraging to see as well.
It was packed that day.
Yeah, we started it at 5 a.m. and ended it at 9 p.m. I did the math, and that averages throughout that entire day almost 15 memberships an hour.
I was in there. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you know, just a big kudos to the staff. I mean, it took a huge effort to pull that off. You know, most of the time there were 3 to 4 staff helping people get set up with their membership, you know, whether it was in person or over the phone. But to me, I was really keying in on this because, I mean, 30% is a pretty significant discount. And, you know, I was generally curious what the response was, because I think it's kind of tells us where we're at. And to get 236, to me, it really felt like that's saying people do want to come back to the community center. People are ready to get back. Whereas if we did that 30% sale and only saw like 20 new memberships, man, we got a long road to go. And so I'm glad it fared the other way. But you're going to say something, Zach?
Yeah, I was in there that morning and then by myself using the cardio, and then that night I went in with my daughters to go swimming. But that morning it was just packed in there. I mean, not like huge crowd, like, super spreader event, but I mean, it was like, you could clearly see that something was going on. And I'm like, oh, they've got that sale going on. That's right. And then coming back later, it was fun to see the staff at the front desk when I was leaving, with my girls, and I closed the pool down that night, and then asking them like, hey, how'd it go today? Like, we sold a lot of memberships today. And she's like, there's just tons of them here. So it was really neat to see that level of fanfare around getting memberships, and then seeing the staff excited about it too. So
Yeah. Yeah, it really, I think, lifted staff spirits, because it's been a pretty difficult year. And so I think for them to put that effort in and, help out with some of the promotions. You saw the happy birthday video that came out that day. And for it to be as successful as it was, I think, staff were really, really proud. So I thank them. So next up, we got the community center master plan. Just a quick update on that. So thus far, we're still working on putting the request for proposal together. And so I think that's still going to take a little bit of time for me to develop. But behind the scenes, we are getting some work done with a financial consulting company called Baker Tilly. And so there's been several meetings with myself and a couple other staff, along with some staff in our finance department, getting them a lot of data and information to help us really establish a baseline understanding of what is the true cost to operate that facility, and coming up with a cost per square foot. So we're diving in on that, and figuring out how we're allocating some of the costs throughout the building, but then also really trying to put a definition to the various types of programs that occur in the community center, and of those programs, which ones should be tied to the community center budget and which ones should be tied to the recreation program budget, which is a general fund budget. And I think I've shared with you that, currently the way we're set up, I would say the majority of our programs are being funneled through the community center budget. It's probably disproportionate there, which, really is kind of put a burden on the community center budget, and especially that being an enterprise fund. That's where we want to take a look at, what things really should be split out of that enterprise budget and being allocated over to the general fund for recreation program and events. And so really kind of defining the piece of pie, so to speak. I think I shared with you a while back, but it's worth repeating again that, on average, I think the city of Chaska, we're spending around $30 per capita in the general fund budget for recreation programming. Whereas most other cities are, similar size, that national average is more like $130 per capita. So that's just kind of another thing that's really suggesting that the reason for that is more than likely it's being carried in the community center budget. So we'll continue working on that, and I think that's going to be very important information for us to have, so that when we do hire more of a planning and design consultant and then put together this community task force, that there's some of that background information right out the get-go to have a good understanding of kind of what the current picture is, so that as we get feedback and consider other concepts going forward, what that impact is going to be. And so just wanted to share with you where we're at on that. And then lastly, just want to give an update on the Arts Consortium as well, at the community center. We've done a lot of work with them behind the scenes, getting all of our kind of systems set up, so to speak. So we now have things in place for the gift shop. So that's the dedicated space that is part of their lease with the city. And so we've got a system in place every month, you know, when they need to provide us the previous month's sales report to when we need to analyze it and give them an invoice, and then final payment is due on the 15th of every month. And so took a little bit of system work there to get that set up. And then similarly, as we're looking at partnering on programs, we've come up with basically a budget spreadsheet that can be both a planning and financial tool to account for the expenses that occur with each organization, to then determine what the net is. So then we can split that net 50-50. So really, again, big thanks to several of my staff that have been integral in helping to set up those various systems that I spoke of. And then also, we're starting to see some programming develop. And I know I had sent an email out to the park board about an exciting program that they're coming out with that was made available through a grant that they received to allow participants to participate for free. That's starting next week, Thursday on the 18th. It's an empowerment program that's really aimed at bringing the community together and sharing our voices, getting to know each other, but utilizing improv and comedy along with photography as kind of a means to have those discussions. And so each week there's going to be a different theme. You know, there's you know, racial diversity to aging, disabilities, LGBTQ, and I think the last one was youth. And so I think those are going to be really good discussions, along with kind of a weekly photography element. And then it's my understanding in the very end, there'll be a public kind of photography display that will come out of it. And then the Arts Consortium will utilize that throughout the summer at some various locations. So I encourage you to take a look at that, promote it, sign up, get registered and participate. And then they've also got some programming that they're going to be providing in conjunction with seniors over at the lodge as well. And so some things are starting to take shape there with the Arts Consortium. And then if you haven't already, encourage you to stop by the art gallery outside the theater. So there's a new exhibit that went up just about a week or so ago, and it's youth art. And so it's a lot of colorful pieces up on the wall there, and some good talented youth displaying their artwork. Any questions on any of that? No? Okay. So real quick, I got another update on the Curling and Event Center. Just wanted to share with you that curling leagues are going strong over there. They're approaching the end of the W2 season. Registration for playoffs has been underway. Those start on April 5th. I believe there's approximately 50 teams that are already signed up for the playoffs. A couple of weeks ago, the curling center hosted a foundation that put on a charity event. It's my understanding it was very successful. And so I was glad to hear that. And then lastly, we're also seeing some more interest in the event center. And so Krista's starting to get some more phone calls with people looking to book events. So that's good news. And then we're starting to get some more corporate group interest to come out and do some learn to curl events. And so that's good news too. There again, you know, my gut tells me that, you know, once people are feeling more comfortable and, you know, we're getting more people vaccinated, I could see I could see a pretty good return of corporate groups wanting to come together and doing an activity like curling. You know, I think the pandemic has been difficult for a lot of businesses, but from my understanding, it's primarily been the hospitality industry. I think there are a lot of other industries that have fared just well, but the fact that they have been doing remote work, I think that, you know, and I hope that there'll be the desire to want to bring their staff together once people are feeling safe and doing a fun outing over at the curling center. And then with that, obviously the other component of the curling and event center is the Crooked Pint restaurant. And so, you know, with increased activity through leagues and some of the events, they're also seeing some more activity at the restaurant too. And so that's good to see. Next update I have is on recreation programs and events. So you will start to see some more in-person program offerings at the lodge for our active older adults and seniors. You know, I know that sounds kind of strange after I just talked about this variant concern out there. But once again, reiterate, you know, our understanding is that is affecting more of the younger population than the older. You know, and then I think the good news is, you know, there's a pretty high percentage of the 65 and older that have now been vaccinated. I think it's been somewhere around 70% on up.
So they said in the
Andy may have-
paper today,
Yeah.
70% here in Minnesota.
Yep. Andy may have seen the CDC, I think it was yesterday, came out with guidelines that people that have been fully vaccinated can come together in person without masks. So that was pretty big news. I think we're going to be hearing more on from the governor to understand what that means here in Minnesota. But I think all things are pointing towards us starting to at least be able to resume some of those in-person activities at the lodge, which that'll be good to see. You know, that's the part of our building that has been closed throughout this whole thing, you know, and that population has been the population that's had to isolate more than anybody. And so I'm glad that they have been able to get the vaccination first and can get back together and, you know, do some of that socialization that's important. Additionally, an update on our Fire and Ice Festival. So that's always a huge community festival that we look forward to that typically occurs in the middle of July. We're not going to be doing it in July, but we have set a date for October 15th through the 17th. And so that was an available date within the event center for us to be able to do it that weekend. Also feel really good that it's kind of the furthest out we can get, where I think the weather still has a pretty good chance, even though we're talking Minnesota here, to be pretty good. And by then, all signs are pointing towards, the majority of people being vaccinated. So, I feel like we can plan this event with a pretty good degree of certainty that we'll be able to actually execute the event. And so we're looking forward to that. We had a kickoff meeting last week, putting some ideas together there. One highlight of this weekend is going to be the fact that going forward, we're going to be partnering with the fire department on this event. And this year in particular, they're celebrating their 150th year anniversary. So I keep telling them, we thought we were cool with 30 years at the community center. 150 is just, you can't even fathom it. So we're really looking forward to partnering with the fire department and incorporating some elements of the fire department into that weekend's festivities. So more to come on that in the future. And then lastly, I just share that the recreation program staff are really working hard on trying to put together programming for the summer. It's still kind of in that strange place of, working around guidelines and whatnot, but trying to focus on things that we can do outdoors, especially. But they're going to be working on putting together a programming guide. And I should also remind you too that we also need to keep in perspective that the full-time recreation program staff are still working the front desk operations of the community center. So they're playing a pretty critical part in running the operations of the community center and minimizing some of our costs with part-time staff. And so, I can't expect them to roll out the same volume of programming we've done in the past with 50% of their time being spent in the operations. And so just wanted to share that, and so everybody has that perspective as we're putting out programming. And that's going to be one of the challenges we're going to face as a department is, as we grow membership and hopefully revenue, how can we start to kind of pull back some of the staff out of the front desk operations and reintegrate part-time staff back into the mix. All right. Any questions on any of the recreation stuff? No? Okay. Next up is the capital improvement projects update. So I got a couple here, and I got to share my screen thanks to Zach. He sent me a picture earlier here.
We're enjoying the weather on Sunday.
Yeah. There it is. So those are your daughters, right, Zach?
Those are my two younger daughters. I have three daughters, but that's the youngest one and the middle one there. This is on where the Lake Grace Trail is going to go. I just thought it was kind of fun because on Sunday we went down to the lake and I saw that I'd seen Mike's crews out there the last couple of weeks, just going like a timber crew out of the Pacific Northwest and hauling all kinds of stuff out of there. And that massive cottonwood, I mean, it was just a gigantic tree, and it took them a while. A couple of weeks ago, I went down there. I saw they had started on it. Went down there last week. I'm like, well, they got a little further, but it's still not out. And then last Sunday, when I went down there with the two daughters, I saw that they had it down to just the stump, and it was just you could just see by looking at the sheer size of that. That's a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old. They're about the same size, but they're a year and a half apart, and But the size of that trunk there is just massive, just the stump sitting in the ground. I just thought that was kind of a fun picture. And then you can kind of see as you're looking off on the north where they're clearing out that whole path there to make the trail. So
Yep.
thanks for sharing that, Marshall.
Yeah, yeah.
It offers some good perspective of the size of it.
Yep. Yeah, and Brian had shared with me that, you know, they had to do it the old fashioned way. I think originally they were going to bring in, you know, some heavy equipment and whatnot for that tree clearing, but they determined that it was too tight in there. And so I think they, you know, they literally climbed up it and limbed it off bit by bit. Yeah, I talked to Brian today and he said that, you know, 90% of kind of that tree removal and trimming is complete. So they just got a few more things they got to do. And then other than that, you know, the bridge is currently being fabricated off-site. And so we should probably get some more information here in the next month or two as to when they plan on delivering and installing that bridge, you know, and some of that will have to be based on what the current road restrictions are and those needing to get lifted. So progress is getting made out there, which is good to see. Again, I think we're targeting kind of that June timeframe for it to open back up, where once that bridge gets installed, then we would come back and do some of the trail improvements to make it accessible for people to start using it. The last update I had in the capital improvement projects is on the Cortina Woods Neighborhood Park. And so I think I had shared with the park board that we submitted a letter and a survey that went out to the residents that live within a half mile of the park. And we created a section on our website where we pointed people to be able to go to and take that survey online as well. And so we got a good response of people doing them online. And then of the paper ones, we had staff actually type those into the online so I could get everything all in one spot. The deadline was yesterday. So I haven't had a lot of time to go through it, but I thought I'd just quick share some of the statistics that we got from it thus far. So we did have 56 households respond to the survey. So I thought that was a really good response. The first question we asked is how long they have lived in their current home. And there was multiple choices there to select from, but 56% of the respondents have lived in their home within 1 to 10 years. You know, so that's kind of representing those are maybe a little bit more newer to the neighborhood. And then there's, you know, the other 50% obviously have lived there 11 years or longer. Then we asked the question, how many years do you anticipate continuing to live in your current household? And 47% responded that they plan on continuing to live there for another 1 to 10 years. So there again, about half plan to live there for another 10 years. And then another half plan to live there longer, you know, 11 plus. Then we asked how many minutes does it take them to walk to the park? So generally trying to get an understanding of proximity. And we had options of 1 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 6 on up. 95% of the respondents live within a 6-minute walk to the park. So we really got a good response from those that really live pretty close to the park. The other 5% indicated they live 9 to 10 minutes, minute walk away. And then we asked what are the current ages that are represented in the household? And that was a free form where people just type it in. So we got to go back and mine through that to gather what the age kind of range and median is. But then here's another interesting one was we asked the question, on average, how often do you use the park in the spring, summer, and fall? And we had the option of never, one time every 2 months, one time a month, 2 times a month, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 times a week. 54% of the respondents, if I kind of lump them together, only use the park up to 2 times a month, which I thought was pretty interesting, I guess. 17.86% responded they never use the park. And then another 10%, basically 11%, said they use it 1 time every 2 months. So in general, I kind of broke it down that 54% only use it up to twice a month. And then the other 50%, use it weekly to some degree. And most of those were about 10%, whether it was 1, 2, 3, or 4 times a week. Now, the interesting thing is I was actually pretty surprised that 17.86% that said they never used the park actually responded to the survey. So I was thankful they took the time to actually respond. You kind of wonder how many more don't use the park that didn't respond to the survey. But to me, there's probably a lot of things to think about with that response. And some of that I think we'll get to in the other questions that we asked. So the next questions we asked were, what do you like about the current park? What would you like to see added in the newly redeveloped park? And then we asked a more specific question, if you indicate that you seldom or never use the park, essentially, what is it that we could put in there where you might start using the park? And then we just asked a last question of what other comments do you have? Those were all free form responses. So we got to go through and kind of read all those and try to come up with what are some of the themes. Once again, I haven't had time to do that in detail, but at quick glance, I think some of the common things I'm reading are the playground surfacing is important. Currently, it's that pea gravel. So they would like to see it more as like mulch or something different. Another big one was shade, just simply having some sort of shade. And then also picnic tables. And then, part of the letter that we sent them, we included a page of some ideas, just some pictures of ideas of things that could be incorporated into a neighborhood park. And I should have probably assumed this, but a lot of the ideas that they put in there about what they would like to see added were in line with the picture ideas that we sent them. And so, but I thought that was important because, not everybody knows what are the types of things you can put in a park. And so I felt like we had to give them some examples. And my hope was maybe that would trigger maybe some other ideas. And I think there were. But for example, a couple of the ideas were like concrete bag toss. So it's like more permanent bag toss stations, and then concrete ping pong. And so quite a few people were responding like, oh, those would be nice to add to the park. And those examples that I put in there were really also trying to aim at getting people to think about using the park that might not be just a tot or a kid. You know, how can we get more adults and even seniors that might live in that neighborhood to come out and use the park? So we'll look through that some more. I'll be setting up a meeting with Brian Jung to review this survey data. I think this is going to be really helpful information for us to be able to provide the playground consultant and vendors to factor in this feedback, you know, and come up with, you know, 2, maybe 3 concepts for us to bring back to a neighborhood meeting out at the park and have some discussion and get some feedback. And I think that more than likely, if I recall from Brian, would probably be sometime in the month of May where we would try to hold that neighborhood meeting. And then, you know, come to some conclusions and then look to do the actual construction probably in September of this year. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I have just one maybe suggestion in terms of trying to get adults to come out to the parks. If space allows, you know, community gardens are a great way to get both adults and family interacting in those spaces, just because they're generally sunny and more conducive to that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be an idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea. What is your thought on a water source for a community garden out in a neighborhood park?
Yeah, there are a lot of communities who start a community garden like that and then have no water, so they get the rain that they get. Sometimes the community will bring out on certain days big carboys of water for people to come and water. And then in some cases, after a period of time where there does seem to be a real interest in it, actually adding a water source and providing hoses and whatnot. So it's sort of the whole gamut.
Yep.
I have a suggestion. Rainwater collection.
Mm-hmm.
Those big IBC tote tanks. Carver County has grant programs available for this. If we were to set up a feeder to it and we were to get a couple of like IBC tote tanks out there, collect the water, you just hook a pump up to it and it's literally just collecting all the rainwater and you'd have a water source. But I have a question beyond that. Who owns that little swamp to the west there, or to the east there, Marshall? Is that city property? Because I can imagine the school district ends at the parking lot.
Yeah, more than likely the city. Yeah.
Okay. Is there a plan for that, or is that able to be something to be done with that little swampy area over there?
I don't know. My guess is that's part of a stormwater management. You know, for that development.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is more of a natural resource on that site.
Maybe we just siphon water off of that I think community garden's an awesome idea. I think it'd be a lot of fun. But there might be somewhere we could siphon off of that swamp. But I was just curious about that swamp, just in general, if there was an opportunity to use that area for something, or if it's just there to creep out kids when they walk by it.
Yeah. Good ideas. All right. The last update I had was just on the park board applicant. So we did receive 3 more applications. And so the city council will be interviewing them next week, Monday, the 15th. And I think that more than likely, I don't think they have a work session planned that night, so they could probably interview them and choose to even appoint them that same night, if they're feeling comfortable with that. So looking forward to that. We may have 3 more park board members that will be able to join us at our meeting next month. And so we'll wait to see what that outcome is with the city council, and then look to set up a meeting with Dave and probably Jason, along with myself and Mary, to just meet the new park board members and make them feel comfortable coming into the next meeting. So good news on that. All right, I think that is all the updates.
Cool. Thanks, Marshall.
Yep.
Next item is the board reports. Let's go around. Jason, you got anything tonight?
Nothing for me this evening. Thanks, David.
Georgianne?
I don't have anything either.
Elizabeth?
I just have kind of a question for Marshall. You touched on this a little bit. It's kind of hard to plan for summer activities and things, but is there a timeline when we should be expecting that like spring summer activity mailer going out to everyone's household that says all the activities that people can sign up for in these upcoming months? Or did I miss it?
No, you did not miss it. They're still working on it. That's been sort of the thing is, as you know, up to this point, we've been really programming kind of month to month.
Yep.
And we started to get out a little bit further. And I think the recreation team is thinking, they at least got to put together more of like a summer package. And one thing too that I'll share is we're shifting how we're doing our activity guide. So in the past, we used to contract that out with a graphic designer out of Northfield. It was a pretty significant cost. And then in addition, we mail all those out to all the households in the school district. So a pretty significant mailing expense as well. And so, this kind of presented an opportunity in which I've encouraged staff to look at producing our activity guide in-house. And so there's a couple of staff that, have some talent in that area and passion and are willing to learn. And so we're working through that and figuring out like what tools we're going to use. And then we intend to, just so you know, we intend to print them, but we're likely not going to mail them. We're going to have designated stations at city facilities, and then possibly look at partnering with some local businesses where we'll just have like a rack of those activity guides available for the community to pick up. And then maybe what we'll do instead is send out just a postcard, that, this is now available, or coming soon, and then list the locations where people can find those. And so it's kind of a cost reduction strategy within our department that we're looking at doing going forward. But I think that most of that summer programming, I think, is going to be available probably end of March, early April.
Okay, thanks. That's
Yep.
all.
Zach?
I'm good. Thank you very much.
I think I'm pretty I don't think I have anything else either. Tell Mary that we miss her.
And Marshall, how's your daughter doing, by the way, if you don't mind me asking?
She's doing well. Thanks for asking. Yeah, she so far has very mild symptoms. You know, I shared with some people before we hopped online here that, I mean, she was in the garage doing a workout this afternoon. So, you know, it was one of those situations where her symptoms were pretty mild, and we're kind of like a lot of families, like, what do we do? But you know, err on the safe side, and went and got tested last Sunday late afternoon, and it ended up being positive. So, good thing we did. She does play JV basketball, so that required some quarantining to take place for the team. But we held her back from playing a game on Saturday night, which was pretty key, because had she had played Saturday night, you know, and then obviously went and tested Sunday, they probably would have had to have a longer quarantine and miss the rest of the season. Now it's looking like they still have a chance at still being able to compete in sectionals. So
Good call.
we'll see.
Glad she's doing well.
Thanks.
Oh, the other thing I was going to say was I was pleased to see Michigan State made it to the big dance. So that was good.
Yeah, they had that big win against Michigan the other night.
Yeah, they did last game. So
Yeah.
22 years in a row. It was going to be 23.
Yeah.
Last item on the agenda is to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great
Everybody.
day. Take care. See ya.
Yeah.
Bye.
Stay well. Bye.